So I'm glad everybody could be here today. My name is Holly Carter, and I run a strategic communications firm, and we also do a lot of crisis communications. We also, obviously, like you all, we are alum of the Enterprise program and SBA Emerging Leaders, so it's great to be here with you all today. I think this is a great topic for me because, number one, I'm very community oriented, not because I'm some great person or whatever. It's just for whatever reason God put this thing in me that I have this need, I guess, to feel needed. And if I see things out in the community that I can do and help people, and then also, you know, help realize what my talents are and better connect my talents with people out there who are looking for my talents, then that's a win-win. And I think that's what I want to talk with you guys, I think, first and foremost today about is just sort of changing the mindset that we have on community giving, and when really what I call it is branding through philanthropy. And when you start looking at it that way, it sort of changes the strategy behind what we do and why we choose what we choose to do. But I don't want to just dive into it until I want to follow what Laura Lee, how you see this call going. But I am in Fresno, California. It's about 75 degrees here. And so we have nice weather, although we need the rain. We still are in a bit of a drought. But so, yeah, ready to go. Ready to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Great. So I did just see we had a few other people join. John is on the line, and then somebody dialed in from a 202 number. John, can you hear us? Most folks are just shy to speak.
Hey, Laura, this is Ronette Myers. Can you hear me?
Hi, Ronette.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Sorry I couldn't speak through my computer. It's just a one-way thing. But just to tell you a little bit about who I am. So I started Dayland Solutions in 2010. It's a government contracting firm. And, you know, we were SBA Emerging Leaders and also in the Goldman Sachs program all of last year. So I currently do a lot of give back in the community. So I wanted to hear some more strategy around that. But so we currently support the Federal Aviation Administration. So we do strategic planning, system engineering support, financial management, and program management, and now IT services for them as well. And we also work with the DC government, and we do strategic management consulting and some business process improvement for them. But looking to expand my footprint in the give back. Last year, we were able to give out our first scholarship to a deserving high school student. And we also participate with the DC Adopted School program. So we do a lot for the teachers and the students in our community here in Washington, DC. So I'm excited to hear more about giving back in this area. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, and Holly, I'd love to just turn the floor over to you, and if you want to share a little bit about, you know, your experiences, and then we can kind of open up for questions and give others a chance to share a little bit more about what they've done or what they have intentions to do.
Sure. So it's kind of funny that we're talking about this subject today because there's nothing that I like better than branding through philanthropy. So we're going to kind of go backwards here. We're talking about community engagement and community involvement. How can you give back to your community? So to start that talk out to start this out by talking about branding may seem a little bit self-serving and weird, but hopefully by the end of our call today, you'll understand why it's not weird at all. When we are hired, we are brought in to create the story of the business, and we have to identify what the why is behind the what. So people don't buy your why, people don't buy your what, they buy your why. So for our purposes, what we need to do is dive into the story of the customer, figure out why is it that they started their business to begin with, and why do they continue to get out of bed every day and do what it is they do? And sometimes as small business owners, we don't know anymore. We lose touch with why it is we're doing what we're doing. We get so caught up working in the business instead of on the business that we forget. So it's helpful to sometimes go back and, well, often go back and really extract the why behind the what. What was the dream you had when you first started? And so when we are developing that strategic messaging for our clients to help them brand themselves and to tell their story and connect them with their target audience, we're going to be looking for ways to do that where we can get what we call earned media, which is stories written about you in the news. And that's the best kind of publicity at all, because if I say that we're great, it doesn't mean anything. If you say that we're great, it means something. If you read it in the news, it must be true. So community involvement is a very, very easy way to get some good stories written about you. You do have to be strategic about it. You can't go at it in a way that's like, here's $100 for the community center you're building. Gee, aren't we great? So a lot of times what we do is we actually move monies away from various things that our clients are involved with that we don't see any branding give back. We don't see any real possibility there or enough of a possibility for them to continue to invest there. Now, if it's something that's near and dear to their heart, maybe their child has autism or something like that, that's fine. But if they're, for instance, if they're members of every single, chamber of commerce or every single business club, and they're coming in at the highest level and they're not really getting enough singled out exposure from that, then we're gonna take a look at that, and our recommendation is going to be to pull it. And so often we're not very friendly, or we're not really well liked by a lot of these community organizations, because we go in and we look at the value, and first thing we do is we reallocate where their monies are going towards community engagement. So before we get into sort of how to do it, let me give you a couple examples of ways that it can be done that are relatively seamless and give a lot of bang for your buck. One of our clients is a steel manufacturer, and we had a Little League team a couple weeks before the baseball season started. They had their shed broken into, their storage broken into, and everything was stolen. And there was no way that they had the money to replace that. So it was all over the news. I called my client. I said, hey, we've got this extra steel building here that we're not doing anything with. Can we donate this to this Little League club? And that way, when we start, the community was coming together to donate items. And I wanted to make sure that we could secure them so this wouldn't happen again. So I said, absolutely. So we were able to transport the building. I called, did a press release, put that out to all of the news stations, and also, like business associations, let them all know, hey, good news, we're going to supply this building. And then we also put in there, so it doesn't just look like me, pat myself on the back. We said, please, won't you join us? This is just the first step, but you can rest assured that what you donate will be secure in this steel building as opposed to just a shed. So that got picked up by all of the news stations, and they were out there with the visuals when they were delivering the building, doing the handshake with the photos. And so we got a ton of publicity over that. And that would have cost us a fortune. Of a business knowing who they are, knowing why they do what they do, and being sensitive to the fact that opportunities come out of crises all the time, and just being poised and ready to move on that. Having a handy list that you can send out to your local media is pretty important too. So that would be something, if you don't have it, not a big deal. Just look at your, the main stations you have for television, your main business journal, and your newspaper, if you still have one in your area. And then obviously obviously SBA, NRI, Streetwise, make sure they're all on there as well, and just send out a quick press release when there's something like that going on, and you can always tag on at the end, please join us in helping support, XYZ Little League during these difficult times. So that's an example of something small that works big. I can share with you something that's a lot bigger that our firm did, to give you an example of what we did and how we married it well with a community involvement. So it's difficult for us to brand ourselves, and very difficult for me to tell the story of my why. I think that's probably common for most people, that it's difficult for us to tell our own stories, and that's why it's so important to have either a trusted friend that's good at that, or an associate or whatever, that you help really work out your why, and you develop your strategic messaging and develop that in a way that you can reach your target audience. So in any event, we had, I was actually running for office here locally a couple years ago, and through my efforts of doing the door-to-door walking, which is the worst ever, people are great, but I do not recommend that. Anyways, I came to learn of a real crisis that we were having in the most affluent area of Fresno. And it was kind of ironic because we had contaminated drinking water. And this was affecting over 70,000 people. There's like 20,000 homes that were being affected. And this had been going on for, 12 years at this point. And the elected officials were blaming it on the homeowners. And I don't know how many of you followed along with anything that happened in Flint, Michigan, but suffice to say that what happened in Flint also happened here. There was a change in the water supply. The corrosion controls weren't handled properly, and politics got in the way. And instead of them just saying, hey, we messed up, they continued to deny. And so the homeowners were literally being poisoned with lead. And so here we are. What do? We tell stories, and there's this, these 70,000 people that have gotten nowhere in over a decade. You've got pregnant women, you've got little kids. The schools are affected. I mean, think about it. Preschools, your elementary schools. All these little kids are living in the most affluent part of Fresno, and yet they're being poisoned with contaminated drinking water, and nobody will do anything about it. So what does it take to get elected officials or political bodies to pay attention to what otherwise they just say, hey, it's not our problem? News. So we did what we do best, and we created a campaign, if you will, put a name around it and some visuals, and started having public meetings, and started pitching the story to the reporters, et cetera, and started in June. Okay. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Are we still okay?
So I need you to set up an account.
Is that better?
You.
I think Carol just joined us. There.
Okay.
Carol, I just muted you for a moment. It sounds like you were finishing up another call. So,
okay.
Yeah, keep going, Holly.
Okay. So I want to wrap this up because I don't want to take the whole time talking about this, but there was over 150 stories written all across the country. My coup de grace was when I had Reuters from New York call me and write a story about the contaminated water in Fresno. And the city originally was saying, it's not our fault, it's your fault, you need to replace your pipes, it's your, blah, blah, blah. Now they've spent over $2 million, and they've hired the people that were involved in fixing the water problem at Flint. They're now fixing the problem here in Fresno. And the whole thing could have been fixed if they just would have given us free bottled water, but they said no. And so now there's still ongoing investigation. And I do think that ultimately there'll end up being some criminal charges filed. So in some ways that makes me not really popular with some of the people that don't like what I did. But in keeping with my why and why we get up and do what we do every day, it was completely in line with that we like to help the truth find the light. And these people were being ignored. And because of the work, our specific skill set that we were, it's commonplace for us to do this because we did it. Now the problem is being fixed. So that's an example. And it also gives me a way to explain to potential clients what we do. Because it's kind of hard to explain what we do, but I can say, hey, you remember that problem, blah, blah, blah. This is what we do. So we absorbed, all of the costs, everything we, paid for all of that, everything that needed to be paid for, we paid for it ourselves. It was an expensive project, I'm not going to lie, but we were able to obviously write it off. It was all, within the scope of things that we would be doing anyways, but it was an enormous amount of labor and time. But 70,000 people needed to have safe drinking water. So that's an example of a bigger project that we did that was controversial. But hopefully you're kind of beginning to see that it's all over the place, and there's really no one right way to do it. It's just being open and scanning your business journal, your local paper, your local news sources, or even your regional news sources, and look for stories that pertain to something that you do. And I think it will help you start seeing opportunities, even if it's not something you're doing right away, just seeing the opportunities that you could have to really get your name out there.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to, go ahead.
No, there are two things that stand out to me about those examples. And one is exactly like you're saying, kind of leveraging what you already do and the skills that you already have. To tie into it, and then connecting it to your personal why, which we talk about in the Interrise program. And I'm thinking, Anthony, what you said towards the beginning about kind of being bombarded with all of these asks and starting to filter through them. How do you make a decision? And I'd love to hear from others on the line, kind of what is your why? Can you articulate it? I'd love to hear if anybody is interested in sharing that.
This is Anthony Cingrossi talking here in Evanston. It's pretty simple for me. The why is that I can now as a company. Been in business for 17 years. Sustainable, I guess, in my industry, there are seasons. It's busy during the exterior seasons and slow during the winter seasons. Been able to sustain 13 full-time employees year-round for the last 4 years. So with that being able to sustain and actually have consistent income coming in, now I'm trying to figure out a way to give back to the communities we work in or different organizations that I believe in. And it's just because I want to, and it's the right thing to do, and to try to help the communities that we work in too, by donating our labor or material time to different organizations if we can and when we can. So for me, it's been a long process, and it's just because it's something that simply as a company we can do. That's the short of it for me. Try to help people. I think if you're put in that position, you have the opportunity to do it, you should.
So Anthony, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
And what is it you do again?
Own a residential and property management painting company, painting and restoration.
Do you also do the property management yourself, or just the? No,
we work. Yeah, we do. We are the painting contractors for multiple property management companies throughout the Chicagoland area and North Shore. So a lot of the buildings that they manage, we are their on-site painting contractors.
Perfect. What are you involved with now, if anything, that you feel is community? There's some impact of community involvement on your brand's end.
So every year in Evanston, they have a race called the Race Against Hate, which is put on by the YWCA. And the YWCA is a shelter for battered women and children. So it was 14 or 15 years ago, Ricky Birdsong was the head basketball coach for the Northwestern Wildcats, and he was out for a jog with his children, and about 2 houses from where he lives, as he was finishing up his job, somebody drove up in a car, got out of his car, and shot him dead in front of his 2 children. From that day forward, the YWCA started putting on this Race Against Hate, which was done by his wife and 2 children. So if it's evolved over the years from a couple hundred people to more than, they get about 6,000 to 7,000 people, and it's people of all races and ages and running, and they have kids races. So I know the people on the board over at the YWCA, and on an annual basis, I was getting emails or phone calls saying, "Can you please donate for the race?" I said, "Sure, I can do a little bit here and there," but I was trying to figure out how can I actually give back more to YWCA. So we sat down and talked for a while, and what we decided to do is that every year there is a race packet that goes out to all the racers, between 6,000 to 7,000 people in there, and I put a postcard in there. And with that postcard, if someone mentions that, and we happen to do work from them, 5% of any work that we do, someone mentions the Race Against Hate, we donate back to the YWCA. So for instance, over the last 3 years, we donated pretty close to $10,000 back. And I always do it in honor of the person that we work with. When I'm cutting the check to the YWCA, I note the people on there that have hired us and we're able to get back because of what the work that they provided us. So with that, it's a very big community involved event. Every year we are mentioned on stage from Ricky Birdsong Weiss and his children of what we do and how we get back to the community. That's one of the things that we do. There's kind of a workaround of just, again, just writing a check or donating time every single year of just how can it benefit both organizations.
How about looking at something like this? And obviously, I mean, maybe I'm just throwing something out here. What if every time one of these battered women and children were actually rehoused, what if you donated that you went in and completely repainted their house before they moved in?
Right. So as you guys all know, going through the Emerging Leaders class, that is something when I, set out my 3-year growth plan, that is something that I'm gearing up towards. I'm hoping the beginning of 2019, where we are able to go in and help either women and children from the YWCA or people with low-income housing, so I can donate labor and material costs.
Let me share something with you. Let me share something with you on this real quick, not to interrupt you, I apologize. You will have donors that will step up and sponsor the money for paint. I mean, you name it, for something like this. The reason I suggested this, and obviously you've already thought about it, you're an intelligent guy, I want to get back to what it is you do, right? So you're talking about the why, and that's fabulous. But we still have to make sure that we let people know you're a painting contractor. So when people are coming around to select painting contractors, you figure out what your synergistic markets are that you want to move into outside of the property management customers you have now. Look at where you want to go, and this is an opportunity to really brand yourself around. You could name this whatever you want to call this. That would be a huge media story. You could actually do a fundraising event around. There's a lot of stuff. You could partner up with people who actually furnish it. I mean, I could take this thing a long way down the road, but suffice to say, you could make this a really big deal. You could get it to the point where it's not a lot of money out of your pocket. And most importantly, in terms of branding, people are going to know you're a painting contractor. And when it comes time to go out to bid for, let's say, the perfect job that you would want, that's just this cush, the margins are great, you're going to be able to go in there with goodwill saying, oh yeah, we're the ones that do this. And it will really help you. So I like what you're doing with the race, and I think that's fabulous, but I would like to see you take it to a little bit closer, what you're doing in the future. Look at bringing this a little bit closer to what it is you're doing, so that when you're donating, I prefer for none of my clients to write checks. I prefer for them to do what it is they do in lieu, right? So you're either doing it, you're doing it for free, or if it's a huge job, you're doing it just for cost only, those kinds of things. But we want to get the storytelling back around to what it is you do, which is the painting. Right.
And I have, I've secured with my contact through Benjamin Moore and Sherman Williams and Rust-Oleum that when we move forward with this, and we've done this with projects in the past, is that they donate all of the materials necessary for projects where we donate our time. So I have done that.
Oh, sorry. Let me give you a real quick example of how well this works for a moving company here. We have a moving company here called Meathead Movers. And everybody who works there, they're college students. And that's cool, right? Okay, that's great, you know. But they took it a step further. Any woman who wants to leave a domestic violence relationship, an abusive relationship, all they have to do is call Meathead Movers, and they will come for free, get her and her kids, and move her out. That business has grown. I can't even tell you. They're exploding. I think they're going into other states. So
really? Okay.
I've hired them twice now because they do that.
Right.
So it really works. So
yep.
Good job to you for giving back to your community. That's awesome. I'd encourage you to look at ways that you get the paintbrush in the hand and you get your crews out in front of the camera. You know, and that's just with a little bit more of strategy. And I think there are ways to get around the cost, because I sense that there's some concern about, you know, which we all would have. Hey, how much labor is this going to cost? Blah, 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 blah. But that can all be worked out through strategic partnerships with other people who also want to give back.
Right. Yeah, but I agree. And I thought about that too, is what can I do? What am I able to donate 100% of labor, and what am I able to donate at cost, or 50% of my labor, and if someone else is willing to come on board and supplement some of that labor cost, because, you know, with being a small company, I can only do so much. So, yeah, if I thought about these, it's just
be looking for stories of places that burned down that need to be rebuilt, or you know, anything with women, children, old people, women, and children those are news is made of stories around those, the feel good stories. So anytime there's opportunities for you to go in and, you know, even just donating the labor and supplying the paint and the materials at cost, or cost plus 10%, that's still a story, you know, depending upon how large the project. So don't be afraid to break even on this. That's okay. You know, you don't have, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can go in and you can make this happen. So an example of that is we needed to expand our Fresno rescue mission here. And I, in my dream, wanted to be able to build that steel building for free. So, but that obviously was just too much for my clients. So I went to a conference in Denver once a year, and I met with the reps that we buy the steel from. And I asked them to donate the steel. And so they did. They donated steel, and we gave them a lot of publicity around it. And so we were able to, my client was able to go in and say, we're going to donate the building. So it was really cool, you know, and it was huge. And he got all kinds of news coverage for it. But it wasn't, he was still not coming, he was coming out even, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Great. And Interrise Lens, I'm really happy to hear, Anthony, that you worked this into your growth plan. I think also just having that intentionality around it allows for the time to plan, allows for that, you know, strategic development that isn't just necessarily responding to an immediate opportunity. But I love that it's actually worked into this more long-term view of how you want to build your business. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, one of the really quick one. I mean, one of the quick things we're doing, going back to try to get the media to get people around it, is that Canal Shores is a local non-for-profit golf course here in Evanston. And so the only way that they have money to upkeep the golf course is through donations and charity events and stuff like that. So they have a bunch of painting on the grounds that need to be done. So I have gotten Benjamin Moore and Russ Owing to come in and donate all of the paint for a project that we're going to be doing there in the spring. I'm donating my labor cost to it, and then in return, they're going to have, like, the Evanston Review is going to come out. There's a North Shore magazine that's going to come out. They're going to photograph it. They're going to video it, and they're going to put it on social media and all that. So that's kind of my first try at it, and then take it from there. I have those contacts to talk to people about the next step of, like you said, okay, if we're going to go and look for buildings that maybe have water damage or burnt, you know, here, I have these contacts, now come and watch us do this one too. So that's kind of, I have been thinking this is like, if we're going to be doing it in March or April, depending on the weather, in order to get back to the local golf course here. So
That's awesome. That's perfect.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. Rhonda, it sounds like you are already involved in quite a bit of work already. Do you want to, share a little bit more of those experiences, or do you have any specific questions for Holly around what you're doing or where you want to go with it? You still there on it? How about Jamie or Carol?
Earl Nightingale, The Art of Money Getting by P.T. Barnum.
Right.
As a man thinks.
I think that's still Carol. Jamie, are you guys involved in anything at Leading Retirement Solutions, or are you just kind of thinking about setting this as a goal?
Yeah, we have in the past. It has come up via just communication and through our client base and things that they're involved in. Like we have our own client that has their retirement plan with us, and they support getting folks out of sex trade. And we have that's a big hot button here in the Seattle area, and we have participated in events with them and made donations. I think part of our business goals right now are being very intentional and relative to our philanthropy in the neighborhood. I know that that's something that we are seeking to have more face time with this year, and it's my previous background is PR, so I'm pretty familiar with tactics and win-win situations, and I think it's just a matter of us finding our avenue in the market to really have those events. We are retirement plan administrators, and we do plan design, and our clients consist of business owners and investment advisors, referral partners. So I think that's probably going to be our biggest challenge is figuring out the impactful way and this reciprocating way to work with those industries and in our own industry.
You the way you described it is perfect, because it's so big. There's such a big umbrella over that. How do we, in front of or aim targeted at your target audience, determine what act best represents the outcomes or the benefits of doing business with you? And is your target audience continuing to be, is it schools? Did you say it was schools, or you were who?
Yeah, I think the challenge for us is the association factor. Like, given the earlier story, and having the painting company and helping and being able to paint places. Like our in is maybe a little more. It requires a little more sussing out, if you will. We don't really deal with individual wealth. We deal with business owners and help either start retirement plans or administer them or administer existing plans. So I think bringing the full circle and bringing the why back to the what we do is going to be our biggest challenge.
I'd be happy to brainstorm with you on that, because you have an opportunity to do actually something very, very clever. And it'll ultimately end up being something that doesn't have anything to do with investing per se, but it is more along the lines of the benefits and the outcomes that come with doing business with you. And I see, in your case, I see some kind of a sponsorship of an event, or something that is really super highlighted focus on you and your why, and gives you the ability to storytell in front of your target audience. And then making sure that that opportunity is the best one. You know, you don't want to just go and spend, you don't want to, I'll give you an example. We got some money, $25,000 that we were going to donate. We could choose to donate it to Valley Children's Hospital here, who, great, but that's a drop in the bucket. Or we could donate it to the Mom Senior Center that they're trying to build, which $25,000 was huge to them, right? So there was a lot more bang for our buck to donate to the senior center than there was to Valley Children. So, so those are the kind of things that you're going to want to look at when you're choosing how to do that. But in what's coming to my mind and listening to you is definitely some kind of when you have a captive audience, so some kind of an event where as part of the event, you're given the opportunity to speak or to brand in some way where you're telling the story of why you. It could be videos that you have done in advance that are playing at periodic. And I'm just thinking, for some weird reason, I'm thinking, like, let's just say it's education night at your AAA affiliate baseball team or something, right? And that whole game is focused on all of the educators and the administrators. They all get to come free, and you're a big sponsor. And because of that, there's going to be videos that are playing throughout the game, and you have this VIP area where, you know, this VIP area where they get to come and they do the wine and the cheese and the crackers, and you're engaging and I mean, this is just, you know, this isn't deep enough. It would be fleshed out to need to be deeper, but it has to be, those videos and that story would have to be really compelling about why you. And that's where working out your why is so important. But that's something that I see that could work really well for you. And for something like a AAA baseball team, you can usually do something like that for not very much money, because it's just a one-time deal. So I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but that's just kind of something that I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah, I should probably mention, because I know Kirsten's on the line, that we also are, one thing that comes to play in all this is that we are spearheading a national survey on women and their preparedness for saving for retirement. So we're in our tail end, second year, third year beginning that survey and growing that. And that stems from Kirsten doing a bunch of research about basically those stats and where women businesses were falling in those correlating to like male counterparts. And that is something that is also very passionate. A passion for our company is helping women business owners succeed and save for their own retirements. So we do have an avenue there and that we could also explore. You know, we've discussed in-house a little bit about educational aspects and per regulatory, you know, guidelines. Obviously, we're not investment advisors, so we have to be sensitive there relative to the education thing that you're mentioning. But I think that we've talked about educational aspects, and again, the class of younger generations and getting them more driven to save for their retirement, which, you know, 40, 50 working years down the road is not something they're typically thinking about at younger ages. So there's a couple things that we can, you know, in relation to what you're saying, explore there as far as, again, back to that, getting associated with other folks in our industry or even outside of our industry where it's that win-win.
That is the best idea you could have come up with. You know, I can hear the passion in your voice. I know there's a story behind that passion that I would want captured in a 1.5 minute video. Anything that is about empowering and equipping women, you know, small business owners, you're going to get a ton of earned media on that. What I have no idea the details of how to go about doing it, but what I'd love to see you do is quarterly, so 4 times a year, seminars that is like a lunch and learn that you invite business owners, women-owned businesses. You invite them to come, and you give them some kind of benefit for free. You do something for them that, you know, you're teaching them something, right? It's not just a sales job. It's not a sales job. You're actually providing something to them that's of benefit with you're asking nothing back. and you do that quarterly, or twice a year if it's too much, but I would look at quarterly. You can also get people to actually help sponsor the cost of the meal, people that synergistically benefit from women-owned businesses, or people that you write big checks to. You can say, hey, I need $1,000 from you for this or whatever. But you can brand it, you can put a name to it, and press release out, and that this is what we're doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm so passionate about it. I'm a women-owned business owner, and women are not prepared for retirement, and it's a problem, and we need to address it, and we can address it. And and blah blah blah. That's a genius idea. I would run in that direction. I love it.
We're walking fast. We're ready to run.
Good. But don't be shy to ask people that you write checks to in your business. Don't be shy to ask them to give you some money to help offset the cost, and you can put their logo on, the little card or the little event, and you can coordinate through your chamber, if they do lunch and learns or whatever. But anyways, that is genius. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, and
it's funny that
I know
you're
that.
making me think.
Oh, sorry. No, I know that we've advertised a webinar, I believe, of yours just through our own iConnect platform. Do you do things like that in person already, or is it mostly just kind of the webinar and those types of online engagements?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, and even that's still in its growth stage. I mean, given the bandwidth, there's probably a lot of things that we could establish in a video format or in that nature that people can join in. But it also makes me think, I mean, it's kind of silly when I say this out loud because you think it would be a natural thought, but our clients are business owners, so how much would they love some publicity to be able to, help and sponsor an event or be a part of something we're doing and build our relationship with them.
I like the in-person better, but I think you could also supplement it with a webinar that you do either once a month or every other month or something, where you bring in guests and you can do it in your office, wherever you're sitting right now. And you offer some kind of a benefit, and you send this email out just like Laura Lee did. And one of my attorneys, HR attorneys, she'll have like 1,000 people on these calls. I mean, and it's valuable information so like one of them, she had me on how to develop a crisis communications plan. And there was like 1,000 people on there, and I'm looking at the names of these people, and these were, people that you would assume already know how to do it. But these are all of your future customers that you're going to be talking to. So it's cheap, it's free. You do it right from your, right from your desk. Nobody can see. You could be in PJs, for crying out loud, as long as you have a nice top on, And so don't be afraid to do both.
Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'd love to give Ronette a chance to jump back in here too, to talk about, again, that work that she's doing with schools and with education.
Sure.
Are you there, Ronette? Great.
I'm here. Yeah, sorry. So what we're doing is we're part of the DC Adopted School program. So we have adopted 2 schools here in the Southwest community, and we have chosen families that are in the greatest need. And what we're doing is we buy groceries for them. We buy Christmas gifts. We do a lot of different things with the kids. We take the kids to get their hair done before school starts. And some of these kids have never been afforded any of these opportunities. Some of them have never been to a hairdresser or a barber shop. So we take the poorest families and give them whatever it is that we can do. And our employees also contribute, and they go over after school to help with high school applications. They help with teacher, the Teachers Appreciation Week. We actually cater breakfast and take it over to the schools. And also, I am actually on the board of one of the Washington Redskins players, Josh Norman, his Stars 24 executive board, nonprofit board. And so we bring in actual athletes, NFL players, NBA players over to the schools to talk to the kids about, staying in school and getting their education and what can happen, once they graduate from college if they want to go into professional sports. So that's one of the things that we do. And then another thing, which I mentioned earlier, is we give away a scholarship to a deserving student at one of the high schools last year in DC. And we gave it to a student who would not necessarily have the means to go to college, but who was a C student who needed that extra push in order to get them to school. Because all the A and B students, they're going to get scholarships, but not necessarily all of the C students. So we wanted to be able to push and give them that edge, and so that they could say, okay, yes, I'm going to go. So we were excited to be able to do that. That was the first time we've ever been able to do it. So, we're just really excited about that. But those are just some of the majority of the things that we do. I was actually featured in a magazine, a local magazine here in Washington, D.C., as a company to watch, because like I said, we are a small woman-owned business, but we do so much in the community. They wanted to kind of spotlight that and, where I came from and what, we're doing here with the federal government and more. And so those are some of the things that we do. We do have it on our website, but we are actually in the midst of updating our website and adding more philanthropy efforts on there. And also every time we go out to different speaking engagements where we're engaging our customers or potential customers, we do talk about our philanthropy. So that's just some of the stuff that we're doing. So just trying to give back.
Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
Can you share with me again what it is you do?
So we're in the government contractors. So we provide program management, system engineering support, IT, and strategic planning, and financial management to the Federal Aviation Administration, and also to the DC government. So we have two contracts with DC government, and the main one is providing strategic management consulting. So we're doing business process improvement, organizational development, and some conflict resolution for one of the particular agencies in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so can you put that, I understand it sounds like there's a lot of different things you do, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So it's mainly professional services to the federal government.
Okay, what was the first professional service that you did?
So program management.
And what does that mean?
So we manage particular programs within the agency. So for instance, I manage a training contract that we have with them. So we look at all of the training courses that need to be offered through all the 45,000 employees for the FAA, and then we partner with another company who actually delivers the training to those people. So we manage the whole process, and we report up to the federal employee. So we also keep the budget on there. We do some of the IT work as far as we design the website for the students in order to go in and register for these classes and things of that nature.
That's amazing. Do they pay well? Does the government pay well for that?
They do. The federal pays better than local.
I would imagine. I mean, you must be doing very well. What's your growth been over the last
well,
year?
We're doing okay. We're still small. So we actually, we're still very small. We're only 10 employees, and we're trying to grow. So as far as revenue, we just increased 200,000 from last year to this year, but we have currently 8 proposals out. So we're trying to grow aggressively, but yet still organically, because I don't have a full infrastructure to support everything. But so yeah, so I do HR, accounting, I do it all, but I do have a team, but I do the majority of the overhead work.
What is your mission statement, or what is it? How do you describe your business when somebody says, "What do you do?"
So what's my elevator pitch? So we are a woman-owned small business providing professional services and information technology to the federal, state, and local government, and we're looking to expand into the commercial industry as well. We are a certified woman-owned small business. And when I say those certifications, I leave those out last because generally the government wants to know what you do first and then what are your set-asides. So we tell them what our set-asides are because they can give us direct awards based off of that.
So with one of the things you do, it kind of sounds like you'd be the people that would manage a grant almost. Like if somebody got a grant of all these things that needed to happen. Does that
That's
ever
true.
come into play?
No, because that's more so on the nonprofit side, and we're for profit.
For profit. Okay.
But it's the same thing, kind of, I think.
Okay, so why did you get into this?
That's a great question. So I was actually a federal employee for 10 years, and my mother actually retired from the Air Force and started a government contracting firm. And she called me in California, and she said, "Hey, I need you to help me run this company." So I came to Washington, D.C., helped her grow her company from 1 to over 150 employees and over 36 million in revenue. And so she said, "Okay, well, now you need to start your own business because we need to keep this in our family and keep it going." And she grew out of the small business set aside. So now I'm considered a small business. And then I actually named my company after my 4 children to help them as they grow and say, you know what, my mom was an entrepreneur, maybe I can be too. So JLAN stands for my 4 children, Jamie, Lene, Asia, and Nia. And I'm hoping one of them will want to be an entrepreneur as well. So that's how I got into it.
What a great story.
You're
Thank
following
you.
in mom's footsteps, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so that's great, because if this is a lot to wrap your brain around. Your passion, giving back to these students, did you grow up poor?
So that's a great question. So we grew up, so my mother says, okay, I'm still having a problem admitting this, that we, we grew up in the projects, right? I don't remember because I was so young, but my mom joined the military and afforded us an opportunity to see the world. So I was able to grow up overseas and in different parts of the United States. And so ultimately, once I grow this business to where I want it to be, I'm going to take the actual equity out and start a youth center in Youngstown, Ohio, because I need to be able to go back and help these students and these children in Youngstown, because they are just living in the streets, living in the world, and not doing well. So I want to be able to bring them opportunities that I received. So that's a little bit about my background.
Your passion is so vivid, and I kind of had a hunch of where that came from, and I think you're exactly on target with where you need to be. What I would like to see happen is take some time and strategically flesh this out so that we figure out a way to tell the story of what you're doing to your target audience, which I guess would be the federal government or whomever. And that can be done, and it doesn't have to be difficult, but I want to make sure that that story is being told, because I see you as on the verge of growing. I mean, being a very successful business. And so, having this sort of why behind the what of what you're doing for the kids in the school, it's important to solidify that now. And as you're growing, you're going to want to continue to tell that story, because it's going to attract other opportunities to you. I don't know that you need to per se go and sponsor any event or anything like that right now. I think what you need to do is do what you're passionate about doing, which is help these kids, and make sure that you sit down and you create the strategic messaging that becomes part of you selling yourself, so that when the opportunities come up, which they will, for you to be blessed as a business because of your philanthropy, it's there. You're not going to necessarily know, but I can just tell you from what little bit you told me, it is going to come back time and time again. I see you being nominated for different awards. I see your business being selected for a lot of different things, and that passion you have for where you came from and all of the amazing things that you got to do in your life, and wanting to give that back and empower, women, children, whatever. that's a great story, and I could see it getting lost in all the other things that you're doing. So you're going to need to do some homework and sit down and tell this story, and then we need to find a way to weave this into your website, to your RFPs that you give out. I mean, and it's not difficult to do, and it doesn't have to be real lengthy, but it's very important that you do it, because if you want this to be your philanthropy, which I believe you do, then we need to be smart about it.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Wow, you just had a light bulb go off for me. Oh my goodness, thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Because I didn't even think about putting it in our RFPs, because we're doing those constantly, and the thought never crossed my mind, because it's two different things, that I'm really trying to do.
They're buying you, right? They're buying your services, and even though federal government is so stale, in today's landscape, with women having the opportunity to, like never before, to be applauded, recognized, and catapulted to new levels of leadership, you need to tell that story. And all you have to do is put a section in everything you do that's called commitment to community, and write up a little thing that says growing up and whatever, right? Whatever. Just to, you write it out, and don't worry about what it says. Then you're going to go back and edit. But basically what's going to come out of it is, here's my heart. This is where I came from. These are the opportunities I had. And thanks to my mom being an entrepreneur and following her footsteps. And now I want to do what I can to give the same opportunities to children, especially the children who may not have these opportunities. They just may not have them, And so that's a great story. Put it in your responses. Put it on your website. It's commitment to community. And I don't care where you end up going and giving to children. It doesn't matter. It's commitment to community. And so do that, and you're great. You're gold.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
oh wow, thank you so much. Thank you.
So awesome. I'm going to be the buzzkill. I want to be conscious of time. But I did notice in the chat that Holly provided her email address. Can you all see that? Or I'm happy to send it out afterwards. And I also encourage you, if you haven't yet logged on to our new iConnect platform, to use that as a place to continue this conversation. I'm actually inspired now to start a discussion there too, to find out what some of our other business owners are doing to give back, and how they are weaving it into everything that they do, rather than having it be kind of this afterthought or this other thing that they do. Make it a part of your business, a part of your plan, a part of your strategy. I think that's a big takeaway from today's conversation. And I also encourage you all, I'm happy to share your contact information with each other, so that you can maybe, hold each other accountable or continue this conversation on your own.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, Holly?
I guess I would just say it kind of brought us to the perfect ending, in that decide what it is you're passionate about in terms of your mission. And I'm not talking about your mission to create widgets, your mission and what your legacy for the world is, and create that section on your website, committed to community, whatever you want to call it, and write that out. And as you move forward and the things that you decide to partner with, it goes, and under that section, you keep track, news releases, what we've been up to, and commitment to community. Document it, put it there, so that people know it's not just something you're saying, it's something you're doing, and it also becomes part of your corporate culture, that it's who you are. It's not just something that we're randomly deciding. Commitment to community is part of our corporate culture, and this is what we're passionate about. This is where we've turned our efforts to. And so it just becomes a dynamic effort that's constantly changing and ever growing, and it's there anytime you need to use it. But I I echo the suggestion to put this in your RFPs and everything you do, because people forget to do it, and the commitment to community is huge. And it just might give you the edge between you and somebody else. So, but this is great. You guys are doing awesome things, and I'm very impressed, and I appreciate that you took the time to share your stories with me today.